The crisp autumn wind swept through the towering pines of Blackwood Forest in Northern California, mingling with the smoke from the campfire. 4 friends, Noah, Brandon, Ava, and Sophia, had come to escape the noise of the city and enjoy a weekend in nature. Their tents were set, dinner was ready, and they sat around the flickering fire. The only sounds were the chirping of crickets and the occasional rustling of leaves. Noah took a sip of his beer and grinned. "People always tell scary stories in places like this," he said. Ava shrugged. "Nature isn't scary, people are." But what they didn't know was that they weren't alone in the forest. Around midnight, Brandon grabbed a flashlight and walked into the woods to relieve himself. When he returned, his face was pale. "I think someone is watching us," he whispered, his eyes scanning the darkness. Sophia frowned. "What did you see?" Brandon swallowed hard. "I don't know, but I swear something moved between the trees." Noah chuckled and clapped a hand on his shoulder. "You're just tired, man." But Ava noticed how unsettled Brandon seemed. He wasn't joking. He truly believed what he saw. Just before dawn, Ava awoke to a faint crunching sound. The night was silent, but her tent's zipper was slightly open. She sat up and glanced at Brandon's tent. Empty. "Brandon," she whispered, but there was no response. She woke the others, and together they searched the area. They found his footprints leading into the woods, but after a few meters they simply stopped, as if something had lifted him off the ground. At that moment, something inside them cracked. This wasn't a joke. Brandon was gone. Panicked, they returned to camp. Sophia tried calling the police, but her phone had no signal. As the sun rose, Noah and Ava decided to search the woods, while Sophia stayed behind to send an emergency signal. But minutes after they left, Sophia heard a faint rustling. When she turned, she saw Ava's backpack on the ground, covered in blood. But Ava was nowhere to be seen. Sophia took a trembling step forward when she noticed a shadow shift at the edge of her vision. And then, an eerie silence fell over the forest. It was as if the woods themselves had stopped breathing. When Noah heard Ava's scream, he ran back to camp, only to find Sophia missing too. His heart pounded. 3 of them had vanished within hours, and nothing made sense. Drenched in sweat, he decided to leave everything behind and find the nearest road. But it was as if the forest wouldn't let him go. No matter how far he walked, he could feel something watching him. As night fell again, Noah realized he was lost. His mind played tricks on him. His own breath sounded deafening. But there was something else. A whisper. "Don't leave." The voice wasn't inside his head. It was real. He spun around and froze. Between the trees stood a figure, humanoid in shape but made entirely of darkness. Noah ran, stumbling, gasping, sprinting blindly. But no matter how fast he moved, the figure stayed just a few steps behind. Finally, his foot caught on a root, and he crashed to the ground. He couldn't breathe. The thing loomed over him, and as it leaned closer, Noah's eyes widened in horror. The face staring back at him was Brandon's. The whispers filled his mind. "Now you understand, don't you?" Noah screamed. And then, everything went black. Days later, park rangers arrived at the campsite. Everything was exactly as it had been left. Tents, food, even the half-burnt firewood. But of the 4 campers, there was no trace, no footprints, no evidence of struggle, nothing. No one would ever know what happened that night in the forest. But some campers who ventured too close to Blackwood swore they could hear voices when the wind blew through the trees. An old legend spoke of those who disappeared, only to return as shadows. And maybe Blackwood Forest wasn't just a camping spot. Maybe it was a trap. Jack, overwhelmed by his hectic work life, decided to escape for the weekend and go camping in the woods. He packed his backpack and gear, heading to an old campsite filled with childhood memories. As the sun set, he pitched his tent, lit a campfire, and tried to enjoy the silence of nature. But deep inside, an unexplainable unease gnawed at him. Something about this place felt different. Amidst the crackling fire and rustling wind, he heard the sound of footsteps approaching. Looking up, he saw an old man emerging from the shadows, illuminated by the flickering flames. The man wore a worn-out coat and a tattered hat. His face was weathered, his eyes gleaming with an unsettling light. Jack nodded politely as the man stepped closer to the fire. "Camping alone, huh?" the old man asked, his voice rough and peculiar. Jack simply nodded. The man sat down by the fire, rubbing his hands together as if he had done this many times before. "Not the best idea to be alone here," he continued, "especially at night. Some people never made it out of these woods." Jack felt a chill creep up his spine, but curiosity kept him listening. The old man recounted a tale about a group of campers who had mysteriously disappeared years ago. At dawn, their tents and belongings were found untouched, but the people were gone, as if they had vanished into thin air. "No one ever figured out where they went," the man added, staring at Jack with a knowing look. A strange uneasiness settled over Jack. His eyes darted around the dark forest, sensing something lurking just beyond the fire's reach. "Were you here when it happened?" he asked cautiously. The old man chuckled, a dry, unsettling laugh that did nothing to ease Jack's nerves. "Maybe I was," he whispered. Then Jack noticed something terrifying. The man had no shadow in the firelight. His breath caught in his throat. "I should be going now," the old man suddenly said, rising to his feet. He walked away slowly, heading toward the darkness. Jack watched him disappear into the trees. But after only a few steps, the man simply faded into the night, dissolving as if he had never been there. Jack's heart pounded violently. He grabbed his flashlight and shone it toward the direction the man had gone, but there was nothing. No figure, no footprints, nothing to prove the man had ever existed. His mind raced, battling between fear and disbelief. That night, sleep was impossible. As soon as the sun peeked through the trees, Jack packed up his camp in record time and bolted for his car. Before driving away, he glanced back at the forest one last time. And there, among the trees, he saw it, a shadowy figure watching him. He blinked, and it was gone. Had the old man truly been real, or had Jack's mind played tricks on him? Either way, one thing was certain: he would never return to that campsite again. Daniel was exhausted from city life. Weeks of relentless work and sleepless nights had drained him. So when his best friend Eric suggested a 3-day camping trip deep in the Montana wilderness, he eagerly agreed. As they hiked through the towering pine trees, the faint sunlight barely reaching the forest floor, Daniel felt an odd sense of unease, like the forest didn't want them there. He shook off the feeling, blaming it on his overworked mind, and focused on enjoying the fresh air and escape from reality. After reaching the campsite, they quickly set up their tents and built a fire. As night fell, an eerie silence settled over the forest. That's when Daniel noticed something unusual. Clusters of strange-looking mushrooms scattered around the clearing. They were blood red, almost glowing, and emitted a faintly sweet scent. "I've never seen these before," Eric muttered, picking one up. A strange unease crept up Daniel's spine. "Maybe don't touch them. They could be poisonous," he warned. Eric chuckled and tossed the mushroom away, dismissing the thought. As the night deepened, things took a strange turn. Daniel felt a strange tingling sensation in his body. When he glanced at Eric, he noticed his friend looked unusually pale. "You okay?" he asked. Eric rubbed his temples, his eyes slightly unfocused. "I feel weird, like we're being watched." Daniel's stomach clenched. He had the same feeling. Staring into the darkness beyond the firelight, he swore he saw shadows shifting between the trees. But these shadows didn't move like people. They twisted and slithered, almost like living vines. Sleep didn't come easily. Tossing and turning in his tent, Daniel kept hearing faint whispers outside. Was it the wind? Or something else? His breath hitched as he slowly unzipped the tent. The dying fire barely lit the clearing, casting long, flickering shadows. Then he saw Eric standing motionless outside the tent, facing the trees. His head was tilted unnaturally to one side. "Eric," Daniel whispered. No response. As he stepped closer, he saw Eric's wide, unblinking eyes staring blankly ahead. Faint red veins had begun creeping up his skin. just like the mushrooms. Eric, hey, can you hear me? Daniel shook him, but Eric's body convulsed violently. It was as if something was crawling beneath his skin. Then he let out a guttural scream and collapsed to the ground. In horror, Daniel saw thin, root-like tendrils slithering out of the dirt, wrapping around Eric's wrists and ankles, pulling him into the earth. Frantically, Daniel grabbed his knife and tried to cut the roots, but they only tightened their grip. Realizing he couldn't save Eric, Daniel did the only thing he could. He ran. But the forest seemed to be fighting back. Branches twisted to block his path, unseen roots tangled his feet, and those crimson mushrooms popped up beneath him, making him stumble. His lungs burned and his heartbeat pounded in his ears. When he looked up, the sky itself seemed wrong. The stars had dimmed, as if the forest had swallowed even the light. After what felt like an eternity, he finally burst out of the trees into an open field. Gasping for breath, he turned back. Eric was gone. The campsite was nothing but darkness. "Eric!" he shouted. Silence. Then from deep within the trees, a whisper echoed. It was Eric's voice. "They'll take you too, Daniel. You can't escape." Daniel's blood ran cold. He stumbled backward, falling onto the ground. His hands landed on something soft. Looking down, he saw a crushed red mushroom, its sticky sap coating his fingers. The scent was sickly sweet. Daniel made it out of the forest, but he was never the same. At the hospital, doctors discovered strange fungal spores in his blood, ones they couldn't identify. He suffered from nightmarish visions, whispers in the dark, Eric's lifeless stare, unseen creatures lurking just beyond his sight. But the worst part was his body. Small red veins had started appearing on his fingertips, just like the mushrooms, and at night, he could still hear the forest calling him back.